Hello again, commentary fans. This is your host, Mike here, and I am back for the next episode. And, I had some thoughts over what to do for this next commentary. And, surprise, surprise, we're going to be doing another monster film, and even further surprise, we're going to be doing another incantation of Dracula. But I think this version is an underloved one in a lot of ways, and I hope it's a surprise. We're doing Shadow of the Vampire today, and I was thinking when we did Dracula last time that I wanted to do, I was thinking of what were the good vampire films that have been made since the classic days, and I think this is the last truly excellent vampire film before they went into parody and before they just kind of, became lover boys. And I think we'll all agree as we watch this today that Willem Dafoe's Max Schreck is the furthest thing from a lover boy we can get. I'm paused at the Universal Globe. It's kind of brightly illuminating, and we're about to begin this classic and a new favorite of mine, Shadow of the Vampire, in 3, 2, and 1. Shadow of the Vampire, of course, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of a take on the whole Nosferatu film. Nosferatu is a film that, surprisingly, I really haven't done yet. That's the Lionsgate logo. I probably started the film a little too early. But it's a film that we haven't done yet, but it, of course, was the very first version of Dracula ever to be filmed. And it was a part of the German Expressionist movement. And, it's a powerful movie. It's not an easy movie to sit through. It's pretty creepy. And it was, of course, directed by F.W. Murnau, who was one of the greatest silent film directors out of Germany. And he was a master of the Expressionist movement. And you look at Nosferatu, even more than another film, Caligari, it really does master the whole idea of having that dreamlike quality. I think why Nosferatu, is a little more haunting than Caligari is that there's a little bit of touch of realism, at least in the beginning of it. Murnau shoots the start of the film like it's, I don't know, like a slice of the daily life, kind of like an Ibsen play. When we see Harker, or Hutter as he's called in the film, move out to go meet Orlok and presumably get his fortune. But really when the vampire comes into the narrative, it goes all balls to the wall into the atmosphere and the creepiness, and you see that the whole world kind of comes crushing down into a nightmare. And I think that is the seeds of where Shadow of the Vampire grew. Of course, Max Schreck, just anyone looking at it, he was a pretty, I don't know if you'd say famous, but I guess, just looking at it, he had something of a career. He was in other films other than Nosferatu, obviously. And it's just like he's so fascinating as Count Orlok. And that film does such a wonderful job creating atmosphere that you want to almost believe that something like the scenario that is about to unfold could conceivably happen. It's a wonderful idea for a movie. And it's really, I think we're going to find out it's really, really well done. I love these paintings that begin the film, and this has a wonderful score by Dan Jones. I actually got the soundtrack to the film, and they really spared no expense in doing it. Yeah, it's one of the most complete film soundtracks I've ever had on a CD. And I think what's interesting about it is that, just really about this whole movie in general, is that in addition to being about kind of exploring the vampire myth, it also explores film and kind of the metaphor of film as a dream. And I like the fact that the music kind of plays with the old cracky little record kind of feel. And in this opening, it's very operatic. And we see like these images of the Crusades here, which remind us very much of the legend of Vlad the Impaler. The film stars John Malkovich and Willem Dafoe as Murnau and Dafoe as Max Schreck. And I think what's interesting about the performance is that we kind of, it's like, it really plays with the believability of the whole scenario. And for a while, you almost I like the fact that we're in on the conceit and that everyone else, they're wondering whether or not to believe this whole scenario. And I think that's really a big factor of kind of how the film is faithful to the expressionist movement. When I saw it for the first time, I was still kind of learning everything about these kind of films and kind of the isms behind art. And I incorrectly thought that, expressionism meant like a hyper realism. And of course, that's not it. But I think what we're going to see is Murnau's insistence on, at least the Murnau in this version of the story, his insistence on creating this vampire is really about the essence of fear and kind of how fear is what leads into nightmares. And the nightmare, of course, is Nosferatu. That it takes us from the real world, from our comfortable place, and kind of shatters our reality. And I think that is very much what Nosferatu is about. We're opening on John Malkovich staring into the rudimentary silent film camera. And here's Catherine McCormack playing Greta Schroeder, who is playing Ellen in the film. This film is directed by Elias Marriage, who really does a great job staging these scenes. As we're going to see later on in the film, there's really, you have a hard time telling which is from Nosferatu and which is, staged by Marriage for this film. And I like what they do there. The film kind of stages out and it goes from black and white into color. And we remind ourselves that this is all an illusion. And that is very much a motif in this film. There's Udo Kier as Albin Grau, the production assistant who wants to, or whose responsibility is to furnish the sets and make everything run smoothly. And he's got probably the worst partner and collaborator in F.W. Murnau, who is so out there. So, a premonition of evil across my face. Catherine McCormack is kind of playing the flapper girl there. And Murnau's kind of the bohemian artist. She has a really, really nice line here. And Greta, why could you possibly want to act in a play when you could act in a film? The audience gives me life, and the camera takes it from me. This is an important scene. We're going to find out about it later, but I like that line a lot because obviously, aside from the, the obvious metaphor of the camera being a vampire and taking life from you, and really, kind of the whole idea of a motion picture just being a symbol of death, like images that are dead, although they have like the kind of the illusion of life. But it really, just like, I don't know, I come from it from a different point of view, but not as much as Greta. They're talking about Greta. She obviously has a drug addiction that we're going to go into later into the film. But I've talked to actors, who have done, just kind of like student films in theater. And, that's very much a aspect of the whole acting. And I agree with the character of Greta there, because the camera isn't about life, it's about death. We're having kind of a bizarre orgy type ordeal, and Murnau is kind of having a fetish. We saw a little morphine being taken from a vial there. It's bizarre to say the least. And what this movie does a really good job of is building up the vampire and kind of building up Murnau's character, in that this whole production is shrouded in secrecy. Here we're going, they're talking about Dracula and the idea that Florence Stoker, as you know, was very protective of her husband's estate, and how she didn't want Dracula to be filmed. The first version of Dracula that actually was approved by the Stoker estate was the Lugosi version, and this obviously was nothing more but an unauthorized Nosferatu, not Shadow of the Vampire, was nothing more than an unauthorized parody, or not parody, but, rip-off or what have you. And that's kind of the whole history of the thing, and actually kind of adding to kind of the creepiness. The creepiness, I think, is that a court ordered all prints of Nosferatu to be destroyed, and, luckily for us, one still lived. It kind of adds kind of the spooky nature about that movie that everyone seems to talk about, and that kind of why this movie, the legends that kind of propelled this movie, the whole feel about it. Right there, we're kind of learning about the background of Murnau's ruse to get everybody to believe him and, to get this production going, that Murnau's choice to play the vampire is Max Schreck, who he bills as the ultimate method actor, who came from Konstantin Stanislavski's theater in Moscow. And that's really, it's an inspired premise for a movie. Konstantin Stanislavski, of course, was the founder of method acting, and they're kind of taking some liberties, because that kind of thing really, like the level of acting that supposedly is happening here, really wasn't happening there. Really was happening with Stanislavski. That was more of what was happening in America with. The name escapes me. I'm gonna go crazy, but what's happening in America at the Actors Studio? Yeah, that's at the Actors Studio, and but it's definitely an interesting concept to start the film. We just saw Eddie Izzard there, who's playing Hutter, and he's kind of an overactor, and he's kind of over dramatic. Our battle, our struggle is to create art. Our weapon is the moving picture. Because we have the moving picture, our paintings will grow and recede. Our poetry will be shadows that lengthen and conceal. Lights will play across living faces and agonize. Our music will linger and finally overwhelm. It will have a context, certain as the grave. That is beautiful. Scientist engaged in the creation of memory. My memory will neither blur nor fade. That's beautiful. It really eloquently sums up the whole idea of the motion picture. And, unfortunately, that really wasn't the case back then. I don't think any filmmaker in the silent era had the notion that films would eventually have that timeless quality to them, that in essence, through the film, Murnau brilliantly states that you can live forever, that is a way to offer immortality. And it's true. Nosferatu is a movie that gets better with age. Here we have Murnau. He's filming on location, and he's found in straight out of Dracula, and he's going to tell them that we have peasants here, and they don't need to act. They'll be the extras. They just need to be. And that's really a lot of fun to act. They need to be. Here we have the first hint that something isn't quite right in the picture. Wolf Mueller is the first cinematographer of the film, and he's starting to have some sickness and be afraid. And, this movie isn't obviously, surprise, surprise, this movie isn't a recollection of the production of Nosferatu. It's really just kind of a fictional film. But they take good effort to, they obviously there was an Albin Grau, there was an F.W. Murnau, there was a Max Schreck, there was a Greta Schroeder, and there wasn't a Wolf Mueller because later on, Murnau will have to get a new cinematographer, but of course we'll keep that for later. Why could that possibly happen yet? Going off of kind of what I was saying about expressionism, it's really, you don't hear isms being used a lot to describe movies anymore. And it was a brief period of time in Germany when there was definitely an expressionist movement in film in the 20s. And I think what kind of got rid of that was the whole idea of the Hollywood system. They didn't really want to give artists a chance, so everyone tried to mimic Hollywood. There we have the first hint at Max Schreck, and that's utterly creepy. It'll be a great treat when we meet him. But I think this film, in its way, is a tribute to the expressionist film. And I think it kind of, in some ways, is an expressionist film in the same way that Nosferatu was. I like the fact that Marriage plays with silence like that, and this beautiful score by Dan Jones, like I said earlier, it's very much wants to pick up the feel of the time and the mythos of it. And of course, music is the greatest tool, I think, any artist can have to create mood, and expressionism is all about mood. Oh, poor Wolf there. He looks terrible. Shadow the Vampire, you almost forget. And some people, since it was kind of a critically acclaimed horror film, they want to kind of downplay up the aspect that, oh, yes, there's a vampire in this. But this film does follow the tropes of the vampire film pretty well. And like a lot of horror films at this time, it was kind of meta in the sense that it's a horror film that knows it's a horror film. In this case, it's even more meta. It's a horror film about making a horror film that knows it's a horror film. But I think that adds to it in some way. And of course, you have Murnau, who wants to distort the line between fantasy and reality and to delve into dreams. And I think meta, like the whole concept of having a meta film, is really well done. Really a perfect vehicle for creating a movie that is a tribute to Nosferatu and the kind of artistic movements that film aspired to. Here's our first introduction to Max Schreck. And Marriage does a really good job. There's a lot of build up to Schreck. And the whole introduction, I mean, his first scene here when he meets Gustav, who's playing Hutter, it's almost kind of anticlimactic. You expect it to be a huge thing. And, the focal point of the scene is obviously Dafoe, who's playing Schreck. But you see Schreck and he's into it, but he's just being like the peasants are, and then the whole crew is utterly dumbfounded. And I like the fact that once you get in there, we see it from Schreck, and he isn't over elaborate Dafoe. It's one of his more subtle moments in the film, because this isn't a subtle performance at all from Dafoe. Here we have Malkovich, who's building up the scene. And that's an interesting aspect about it. It's definitely cool to see kind of like the ins and outs of making a silent picture. And you have Morna, who can actually direct his cast while the take is going on. And they give Morna such brilliant lines. He's a great presence in this movie. There's such a poetic quality to the way he describes filmmaking. There's Willem Dafoe. And, just that's all you need to really get into the performance. It, for a fact that the Academy Awards are so ridiculous because they're really just for dramas that stroke the egos and the politics of the voters and that kind of material, and they hate horror films. But this film was so good, and Dafoe especially, that he actually got a Best Supporting Actor nomination. And you really can see why. Eddie Izzard's going, oh my God. I love this. This movie has a sort of biting sense of humor to it. And the Genius Hunter, genius. More now likes that. More now likes that he was able to get a good performance out of Gustav. But Gustav just thinks that he was acting, but he's just so frightened of Nosferatu. In that hole. Udo Kier is a great actor. He's been in a number of horror films, and he actually was in a lot of vampire films. I believe this is his third one. I think he's done like 5 or 6 actually. But the most memorable one is besides this one, I think this is his best performance in a vampire film, is Andy Warhol's Dracula. He plays kind of like a sickly Dracula who wants to, regain the health and vitality. It's an interesting performance, and it's an interesting take on the character. It's very much like this one, a kind of an art house film that wants to do new things with the character. He was also in Blade, which I haven't seen in a while. I kind of forget what character he played. I think he played kind of like a member of the kind of underworld vampire government in that picture. Here's the peasant looking on Wolf, going Nosferatu. And I love, this is too much. Some stunt to invoke fear in us. Stop being so theatrical. That's something that this movie almost gets accused of being, instead of a horror film, some people say it's just a really dark comedy. And there's a lot of great moments in the film that are very biting. And we'll see them from Shrek. But I don't want to go all out and call the film a comedy because I think it kind of undermines the whole horror of the scenario. But I think, like, as we're gonna probably see later, is that humor is a very natural outpoint of the character. Here's Shrek's first introduction to the whole cast and crew. And, we've kind of come full circle on all the types of vampires there are. And, he's very much reminiscent of Nosferatu. And I think what's interesting is that I like the fact that what he does with his hands in this movie. But I like the fact, like what we were saying about vampires, is that we've kind of gone full circle. And this vampire, some would say he's much more faithful to what Bram Stoker wanted, at least in the beginning of the novel. His first line here is, "I'd like some makeup." And that really is all about the illusion of the character. Oh, he doesn't realize that the contract is just gibberish. He expects it, and he doesn't really understand the whole concept of illusion. And I think that's a really interesting take on the character. And just, this version of a vampire. He's been dead for so long, and he's been removed from society that, he doesn't even want to try to integrate himself like Langella's Dracula did, like Lugosi's Dracula did. It's just like, that whole concept of being human is so beneath him. And, the whole thing is that, like, this is even above being human. This is like consciously wanting to do a job, in a world that is all about make believe. And the whole thing is kind of so goofy to Shrek as the vampire. Oh, the locket. Oh, and his hideous, long fingernails. Those hideous, long fingernails. It's really a brilliant, brilliant touch that was added in the original Nosferatu. And here we get the full take on the character. I mean, we get to see them up close and personal, and it's so hideous. And Dafoe uses them so well. He acts with them, and when he's nervous, he'll slitch around and make the worst noise possible. And it's all about the fact that, when you're dead, they grow still. this is comical too, seeing the vampire try to act, and he doesn't he can't do it right, you know. He just overacts because like the whole cuts were so foreign, but even then he still fits in these scenes with Gustav, played by Eddie Izzard, who's playing Hunter, because he's just a terrible actor. And then you have him, and would really be perfect for an expressionist film, even as a vampire that overacts, because they did that in expressionist films, kind of punctuate everything. But I like the fact that the vampire fits in here, and it works to the whole advantage of this fake Nosferatu film, because he his overacting actually fits right in. Here we have the cast at the end, recollecting after the film, and Wolf is dying. Eddie Izzard's really, really good in this movie, and he does kind of deliver the comic relief we need in a spooky movie like that. And more now assures them that Schreck's quote-unquote method acting isn't going to get anybody hurt, but now we're gonna finally see the real deal behind everything. Oh, this is lighted beautifully, this little cavern here. And Schreck is reading a poem about immortality. I forget which one it is. I thought it was in Dracula, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while since I've read Bram Stoker's Dracula. But it's all about immortality. And that's really an aspect of this Schreck character. Is that he's old and feeble, and that vampirism is very much a curse. You know, he looks all of his years, and he's drained life. He doesn't have the lust for life. I feed the way old men pee, times all at once, and sometimes drop by drop. And that's really a unique take on the vampire. Like, this movie and Schreck in it are really like so against the romanticization of vampire. They want to show you that vampirism is nothing but a curse. I love the scenes with the crew members, the little prop girl trying to take away the locket from Schreck. And he snarls at her, and they all don't know what to think. You know, you almost like wonder if Daniel Day-Lewis were to play a vampire, is this what he'd do with it? It's really kind of entertaining. Here's a moment that this is the best version of this moment out of any vampire film. Of course, you know, the scene where the vampire is, you know, trying to play human, or, you know, just trying to have a better control over his animal urges, and he sees the unsuspecting human like prick themselves. And this is the best version because this vampire Schreck is all animal, and he can't control it at all. And, you know, It's really, really fun seeing the reactions from the other cast members. And, to be fair, like, Marriage and the script do a good job of not taking that too far. Like, in the beginning, they all believe uh, the cover story, but they grow out of it pretty quickly because uh, Shrek is way too much. Watch your finger! Stop it, Mona. I really did cut my hand. Oh, and he wants to use this shot for the movie. Oh, jeez. Monada. Stanislawski's Unity. I am not happy. Well, I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting into this. This is a very good movie, but that's something that they do go into in this movie. It starts off kind of with Gustav, and then you see from Greta Schroeder at the beginning as the flapper. But the whole idea of trying to please an egotistical movie star so that they can deliver the picture. And ironically, Shrek is the biggest backstage diva of them all. He wants, everything his way, and or else he won't deliver a great performance. This is a brilliant scene. You have Shrek here winding the film, and it comes across an image of the sunlight, and it's just, this could have been just a brilliant short film because it really explains the vampire myth. This little scene here, the whole idea is that that's everything that they cannot have, that even with that immortality, it comes at a tremendous price, that they know that they are cursed and that they'll never experience the warmth of the sun, that they're cold and dead. Oh, wow. Like I said, I think this is one of the most impressive directorial jobs on a horror film, because he takes the time to play with these images. There's long gaps of silence, and it's poignant silence. There's action in between them that's really, really creepy and very poetic, and that's one of the best scenes of that movie. They're wondering about having to get a new cameraman, and Morna will have to go to Berlin. Heinrich, this film cannot survive even the briefest interruption. The finances would take control. I hate your script. The crew is edgy, and I like that. Heinrich is the writer. You wrote this scenario. You had demons of your own to work out, did you not? Now I have mine. Oh, he's got the hugest demon of all waiting for him. Malkovich is very good in this film. He has an acting style all of his own, and he's kind of has kind of has a weird way that he punctuates his lines, and it's brought up here in with him doing the German accent, but he's really, really good, and I like kind of the intensity behind it. You mourn, Herr Doctor. I know you. You monster, why not the script girl? Script girl, I'll eat her later. I like the fact that Morna, like the whole concept of this movie is brilliant, and I like the fact how in control Mornow thinks he is. He thinks that he'll be able to handle this vampire to his side of the bargain. I don't think we need to write her any longer. And I like the fact that Mornow, he puts so much stake in the film that he has no moral, no kind of like no sense of morals. Like he's willing to put everyone in danger for this film. I don't think the ship is necessary. I love how Dafoe just shakes his head no at that. And this is the scene I was talking about where Dafoe's Schreck takes the part of the, prima donna movie star. I will replace you with a double. And he just laughs. He doesn't even really care about being in this film. He just wants that sweet, sweet neck of Greta Schroeder. No close-ups. As if that means something to him. This is really, really a fascinatingly written film. Like Murnau, I really like Murnau. It's one of those explorations with artists, and this movie is, it is about making a movie, and it's about making art, and kind of the stakes you put into making art. And obviously, Murnau thinks that there is so much worth doing to bringing his vision to life. Won't sail. Only be reached by sea or air. I love Willem Dafoe. You really, really cannot tell he is under that makeup. He is brilliant in this movie. He should have gotten the Academy Award that year. And this movie should have been nominated for Best Picture. It's one of the best horror films of the last 20 years. I would say it's like only behind Silence of the Lambs for me. And it's just... Oh, there's that horrible rattling of the fingernails. And if death had a sound, that would be it. Jeez. How awful is that? I like this scene here when he's moving in for Greta. Oh. See, this is a movie that, vampire film that doesn't play with the love aspect of the character, immortal age besides immortal youth. And that's really, really interesting. It's all about kind of the lust. And I think that's really makes it powerful. And it's an original take because so many vampire films up to this point have been about, kind of a love story because that was popular. And since this vampire has no sexual appeal, it really brings out the negative aspects of the vampirism that were really what I think Stoker himself intended when he wrote Dracula, that the vampire was about the old taking the youth, taking youth, and really, that's a really what Nosferatu, the original Nosferatu, did as well, because in that film that film came out at a time of the First World War, kind of the reaction to it, and you had like the old aristocratic vampire feeding off of the bodies of the youth, and using them to build their empire. And that's a great piece of the vampire myth that isn't dealt with a whole lot, and I think it's really a great part of it. Here they're talking about, they're quizzing Schreck over the vampire, and this is really a great scene. And a lot of people really see the humor in it because it's really kind of funny how Schreck responds to their questions, but they want to find out about his vampirism. But there's never been, I don't think, a version of this. I mean, this is an interview with the vampire, but I don't really count that garbage. But it's not funny anymore. But I love the fact that he asked, what's your name? How old are you? And it's like so long that he just responds, I can't remember. Like he doesn't have any recollection of ever being human. And it really showcases how lonely and miserable Dracula is. Dracula hasn't had servants in 400 years. The whole point of Dracula that Schreck thinks is that the book is sad because Dracula has no servants. And it's kind of humorous, but you do see the point behind this. He remembers the rest of it, how to prepare a meal, how to make a bed, and he remembers his glories as a warrior. And that's really, it makes the vampire tragic. And I love the part where he says he remembers his glories, and then he remembers what he is reduced to. And the vampire here is pathetic. That really is why Schreck here is a great take on the Dracula character, because it shows kind of the fact that, like the things that aren't done so often, the old age, and the fact that, being so old, you forget, like, there's a generation gap, obviously a huge one. And I love the reaction of Alban Grau to here. Schreck, the German theater needs you, right when he takes a bat in the middle of air and drains it all its blood. Time. that's a constant aspect of this vampire character. And it's not about measured in youth or old age. It's just measured in the fact that there's no way to distinguish one thing from another. That you just kind of, it becomes just wasted, and you kind of lose yourself. And that's really why this character, you do kind of feel for this Schreck character in a way, because he's so sad. Heinrich, what an actor. You'd think that at that point that they'd begin to suspect that something was up. Here he is attacking someone. And that's another good thing about Dafoe. He obviously studies the kind of the original Nosferatu, because he moves so much like Schreck does with the character in the movie. And I like the fact that you take Nosferatu and you compare it to this, and you see like what Dafoe does in that fact that this vampire is the same vampire in the original Nosferatu, and that he walks like him. He does the same movements with his stiffness in the claws. Here's Cary Elwes, who I love. Cary Elwes is one of my favorite actors, but he is kind of goofy in this film. He really loves that German accent. He kind of hams it up a little bit. He was also in another Dracula film, Bram Stoker's Dracula. He played Arthur Holmwood, one of the suitors to Lucy, who eventually marries her and joins the band of vampire hunters. He's a character that always gets thrown out of everything in the versions of the story that kind of condense everything. But he's good in that movie, but he's better here. Cary Elwes, there's always a real sincerity about him. He's kind of a hammy actor, but I really love him. This is one of my favorite performances by him. I also really like him in the Saw. That's really an intense horror film, which a lot of people don't like, but I think he's really great in that film. Here they are doing the scene where they discover Orlok in his coffin. And I'm just interested, like I was saying about how this movie goes into how films were shot at the time. Like, I like the fact that they have the writer on the side, kind of giving little bits and pieces of the scenario to give the actors a taste of everything, and probably the crew as well. And that never happens today. I really like the yes, well, that's his performance style. Fritz hasn't seen Gustav act before, and have Morna kind of like criticizing and making fun of him behind his back. This is great. This is scenes directly from Nosferatu, and this musical score by Dan Jones is so haunting. I would have loved to have seen what kind of score he could have come up with for the whole Nosferatu, when the crew is looking through the ship and sees all the horrible plague rats, and there's nothing there with the lighting. And when you see Nosferatu rise from his coffin, and just kind of the colors of this film are so beautiful too, because there is a flesh tone to Orlok, but in that point, he starts off like almost completely black and white, and then as you move in, you sort of see the kind of the flesh pieces of him, and that's from Nosferatu. And it's really hard to tell where Nosferatu ends and Shadow of the Vampire begins, kind of the footage, because just the makeup and Willem Dafoe's performance are so much like Max Schreck's that it's almost impossible to tell. Like, it's a terrific performance because, I guess it would present some challenges as an actor because you have the original picture, Nosferatu, and you have kind of, I guess as a loose point, you have Shrek, sort of, like as a man, and kind of like reading what he would have brought to the character, and then you have like the whole vampire legend, and I think Dafoe juggles all those balls really, really well. Here we have Catherine McCormack entering the picture as Greta Schroeder again, and she's really, really fun in the role. Like I think that's kind of like the writing of the character left a lot to be desired. She's playing like almost an American type flapper, but I think that's like. I think while that's kind of doesn't leave for a lot of interesting characterization on her part, she does a good performance. But also, I think it works kind of in with the vampire character and why Shrek wants her so badly. That she's kind of like this idealized form of beauty, and Shrek can tell the difference between illusion and reality because, he's so caught up in his own world. And so here he sees Greta Schroeder, who's actually this drug addict, kind of socialite, and he just sees her as a movie star who's so beautiful, and he buys into the illusion. The glorious child, he calls her. I want to see her now. To act for you again until you bring her here to me.
My people have to trust me for you to get what you want. You and I are not so different. Greta is in your last scene. That is when you can have her.
After my death scene. Expect realism there, more now. Cheat me, mortal.
You will stay away from my crew. I will finish my picture.
I will finish my picture. Your picture any longer. I love that line. Oh. Look at that face. And this is when Murnau realizes that he has nothing to threaten Shrek with. That he's completely powerless. And that he's left. There's nothing to do. And that he'll eventually get everything he wants no matter what. And all he really wants to do is to actually finish the movie. Here they have them actually searching for Shrek's coffin. And I think they find it here. Although I've never really been sure if they actually, it's actually implied that Schreck is actually in the coffin. He's actually the vampire. You don't really see.
Answer that question. How did you find this place? I followed mine out here.
I like the fact though that marriage could have filmed the script so it was a little more vague, you know, in term. I don't know how well you could have done that, but I think like if there would be a temptation for some actors or some directors to film it in a way that you know kind of would underplay the vampirism to the point where you would almost suspect that maybe Schreck wasn't a vampire, or you know, that he was just kind of this madman, or you know, that there weren't supernatural elements of the story. But you know, just kind of, you don't need to be blatantly supernatural, but you see in Dafoe's performance that there is something otherworldly about him, and that's really something you could do with an actor. As I mean, that's really a tribute to Dafoe and his performance. You see the fact that you know he exhibits through that stiffness, through his eyes, and through the gestures that he's not of this world, and that's really, really impressive. I love the makeup on him too. There's really a lot of detail in there. I like how they color the fingernails with all that dirt and grime. And if anything, I think like maybe there's a little too much hair on the side of his heads. I'd almost have it be have no hair at all. Here he is looking for Greta Schroeder. I like the fact also that as the film goes on, he wants to kind of stop playing the method actor. He just kind of wants to go into it, and you know, he doesn't even respond to the people when they ask him about who he is. Like in that scene, he's walking through the corridors of the hallway, and he asks, "Are you all right there?" And he's just like, "You already know I'm a vampire by this point."
Anxious lately. You don't understand. I'm ruined. I never make another picture again.
I'll never make it where to go on. You talk about natural light. Please, Fritz.
It's the same on every picture. Not on my picture.
I wonder what they're talking about there. As if they're beginning to understand everything about how the picture is unfolding, and whether, like what Alvin Grau, he's worried about how the film is going to unfold. Here's Schreck locking them all in the middle of the day, and that kind of plays with the sunlight aspect of the picture, or the vampire legend. Originally, this film was going to be called Burnt to Light, kind of like based on how Murnau was talking about how films are dreams projected on light, and because I think the producers of it, Nicolas Cage was one of them, didn't want the film to be judged as a vampire film, kind of because of the stigma against horror films. But I like the title, The Shadow of the Vampire.
There is no Max Schreck.
There is no Max Schreck. Because shadow, obviously, that's what films are shadows in their, like, most basest form. And it really plays up also with how Murnau described him earlier.
A series of paintings portraying the man of despotic kings.
Portraying a long line of despotic kings rumored to be vampires, living in Slovakia for hundreds of years.
I had forgotten all about it until she gave me a clever book.
Dracula.
Then I went to scout the locations. And there I was.
Oh, they found him living in an old monastery. What kind of bargain did you make with him? Play the part of an actor, playing the part of a vampire. That's brilliant. What did you offer him in return?
Everlasting life. And Greta.
I like the fact that part of the bargain was everlasting life, because that is really a romantic view of films, and he wants to preserve the vampire for posterity. But that's really his romantic view of films, because the whole idea that films are above entertainment, it really goes into the fact, I think, of why this movie is true to the expressionist roots. The whole idea of movies being a dream, and, going off of that whole almost mythical quality, putting that mythical quality on film. And now his crew, Fritz and Albin, become co-conspirators, and they realize that they have to finish the picture. They're going to have to film Shrek's scene tonight.
You know I don't like these late shoots, Friedrich. Where is everybody? Why don't you make an assistant?
Greta. Did you put on this makeup?
I like Catherine McCormack and how she's dealing with the rest of the cast, and they all know that she's a dead woman, and she is so self-absorbed that she doesn't see it at all.
Darling.
Why does everybody look so depressing? Who died?
Who died?
I kind of wish that there was actual German actors in this movie. There's not a single one aside from Udo Kier, and it's not a problem. Like, you could definitely tell that these aren't natural German speakers. Oh gosh, Willem Dafoe with that big grin on his face, and that is one of the most terrifying and yet funny things in that movie. And really, that sometimes those are the best moments of a movie, when something is funny and terrifying at the same time.
Herr Doctor?
Yes, Greta, what is it?
Yes, what is it? What's the shot? What are we doing here?
Can you stand for me? Yes, very well.
Look at you, you look very well. I wonder at this point why, Albin and Fritz, the cameraman, fall into this plan. It's interesting because they become conspirators in this, and they want, well, they work, and they, with the realization that Shrek is going to attack her at the end of this. Like, I wonder if they share the kind of the same idea of having this archival record of the vampire, or if, probably above anything else, it's probably their own self-preservation at this point. Let the vampire do all the work. Let the vampire do all the work, and what she said earlier, we have two vampires in the room, the camera and the actual vampire. I liked Defoe there as being all cooperative and actually smiling for the camera. Yeah. This is kind of fascinating seeing those characters on the side. You know exactly what Murnau thinks is going to happen. Oh, here we actually have the realization that he has no reflection, and some vampire films actually forget that. I don't seem to remember there actually being a mirror in the scene, in the actual scene of Nosferatu. But they do something really terrifying to her here. They drug her up so she cooperates for the scene. And this is really well staged, looking at her face here. Before, they kind of played with the role that will make you great as an actress. Oh, I'm sorry, that a sacrifice for your art. Oh, that's really, really well done. Sacrificing your soul for your art. I like how they play back to it. It's really it's good stuff. But they really do. Marriage does a really good job generating sympathy for her, because you see all these men over her and she looks so frightened. I love the scene, her clenching in pain. And she isn't, like, this movie isn't about creating strong female characters or even weak female characters. Well, I would say that there is some similarities in that it's kind of the men in the vampire, including deciding the fate of the woman. Oh, poor Greta. To awaken. There's so much tension in this scene from Dafoe. Like, you see Shrek here trying to play the character, but that he wants that take of the film to end so badly. You see, like, even here, he's like, he's still going through the motions of playing the part of the vampire. But, yeah. I like that too, that you see more now. going through the motions too. It's enough more now. The whole picture's over. I want.
Bitte. Go to hell now. Begin.
Begin! Oh, that's so terrifying. Her going for the neck, and that's like the fiercest vampire bite I've seen in one of these movies. He really goes all in, and they really show the ferocity, and like there's no intimacy to him biting and sucking her blood at all. They're gorging, he's like gorging all out. And even though they do a good job of recreating the bedroom set from Nosferatu, you see, marriage stages as Odyssey, which is far more gruesome. And I like the fact that, they have the kind of the black and white in there. And they're kind of waiting him out, like in the end of Nosferatu. This mirrors it pretty well. It mirrors it pretty well, in the end of Nosferatu. Schreck spends all night, or not Schreck actually, Orlok spends all night over Ellen, sucking her blood, and just kind of loses himself and how gluttonous he is. But he cut the train earlier, so they can't stop him.
So, you would break of a bargain. You think you know so much, but I can still
You think you know so much, but I can still kill you.
drink your
Blood.
You tried to trick me. Daybreak. Is it so bad?
All I need is to stay in darkness.
Stay.
They thought they could end it like the original Nosferatu. Then only I will walk out alive. Oh, I love that effect here when Wagner shoots Schreck. You see the dust come out, and he's murdering the entire crew. He kills Albin and Fritz, and Murnau is totally mad, getting a full photographic record of everything.
Frankly, Count,
I find this composition unworkable.
to return to your original mark, please.
Oh, the look on Dafoe's face is priceless. You see him looking at Murnau like, are you serious?
I'm afraid it doesn't exist.
And Murnau still going off of the idea of the movie. Here's one of the most creepiest moments of Nosferatu, and they really do a great job of staging it in the movie, where you see her grab at the heart and have her rise after she's had all the blood completely drained from her. And it's so, it really adds something to it, because just going off of what I was saying earlier, that Nosferatu, it's so dreamlike that you forget that it's a movie. It seems more like a nightmare that, you know, the viewer itself actually dreamed, that you forget that there was actually actors in it. And, you know, that's a great scene because, you know, all the other scenes in the movie so far have been about, you know, Shrek just playing the part. But now, more now, is actually showing the horrors of everything, and they're being incorporated into this movie. And here, finally, you must turn to meet the sun.
The death of centuries. Moonchaser, blasphemer, monkey,
Oh, and the movie
prehistory,
isn't actually filming.
and finally born. Yes,
Oh, wow.
yes.
And you see the mechanisms of the camera.
Alvin, could you quickly
Oh.
and return it to its rightful place? It is necessary for the final frame to remind us of the inadequacy of our plans, our contingencies,
Oh, wow.
train, the failed picnics, every lie to a child.
And here we have like the final version, or the final myth of the burning sensation of the film, the fire of the film, and the fires that kill the vampire, and the actual shadow of the vampire. It's really a powerful metaphor. And, you know, marriage, his use of imagery is brilliant in this film.
Time will no longer be a dark spot on our lungs.
Time will no longer be a dark spot on our lungs. They will no longer be able to say you have had to have been there, because you were.
Because the fact is, Alvin, we were.
That's really, this is like really the best movie about, one of the best movies about movie making and about really the love of movies, because it puts movies on a religious quality. And in a weird way, you appreciate more now here, because he thinks art is worth dying for. And although some of the others on his little opus might not agree with him, he might just have his picture. Thank you.
I think we have.
I think we have it. And so ends Shadow of the Vampire, the last great vampire film, in my opinion. I love it, and I hope you did too. I just, you know, noticing some of the facts that, just noticing kind of the flow of this commentary, that there was a little more silent pauses than before. But, you know, the fact is, I was really into this. I apologize. It's a great movie, and I hope you really enjoyed it too. As always, leave a comment if you liked the commentary, if you didn't, if you're a fan of Shadow the Vampire. And I really hope that there are some fans of this movie, because I would love to see it on Blu-ray, and I'd love to see Elias Marriage make another movie. He hasn't made one since Suspect Zero, and that was, I believe, in 2004, and he's way overdue. One of the great filmmakers, just based on this movie alone. Until next time, you all have a pleasant evening, and I think we have it.